G'day guys, my name is Wildcard and welcome back to my channel. It is steaming hot here in Sydney. It's like 35 degrees, overcast, feels like I'm living in a steam oven, but it's Tuesday, it's news day. Let's take a look at what's been happening in the world of Union. This week, we have the start of the Japanese top league. There's some coaches talking trash on Twitter once again. Sir Clive Woodward is the target. We have some news about the Six Nations potentially talking about being played in one country and Wales moving all of their home games to potentially England due to restrictions. And there has been also a big return in the Japanese top league, that is Israel Folau. So we're going to have a look at that and how did he perform in the Japanese top league. And some other stuff as well. Other coaching related stuff. Michael Cheika potentially losing his coaching job in Japan as a result of a drug bust on a player that we reported last week that he kind of brought into the club. So yeah, some very, very, very interesting stuff this week we shall go through. First up, get your popcorn. Let's have a look what's happening between the coaches in the Mount Olympus of rugby are going at it again in the Twitter wars, right? So basically, Sir Clive Woodward has been infamous as trying to stay relevant, slamming Rassie Erasmus earlier this year about his strategy to winning the Lions Tour, calling it boring, essentially saying that the game is going to be dead in 5 years if everybody play like this. I'm Clive Woodward, I'm irrelevant now. So yeah, basically his relevancy, trying to make these weird comments to stay in relevance, to trigger some people on the internet, like me, and then get themselves on the front page. So, the Honourable Sir Eddie Jones have written a book about this exact thing that Woodward had done to Eddie, where Woodward was criticizing Eddie for his coaching style in his column in the Daily Mail, where Eddie Jones basically said, if you read what Sir Clive Woodward writes in the Daily Mail, you're gonna be going down a dead-end path, essentially. And Rassie Erasmus took the opportunity whilst, I guess, he's reading Eddie's book, quoted this book and said, not sure if this is fake news. Apparently, it's in Eddie Jones's book. Shit, it looks pretty accurate to me. So, the exact incident that Eddie Jones was referring to happened to Rassie Erasmus, where Sir Clive Woodward wrote an article, absolute like just trigger bait, absolute idiocracy about criticizing Erasmus' strategies in the Lions Tour, and yeah, a bit of a stab from both the Honourable Sir Eddie Jones and Rassie Erasmus back at the worst coach in the world, Sir Clive Woodward. Okay. Bit of fun for everyone. And then we have the report that Michael Cheika, who was assigned director of rugby at one of the Japanese clubs called Green Rockets in Japan, and he basically his son was a rugby league guy. His name was Blake Ferguson, and basically he was arrested for drugs last week and got fired. And he's looking at potentially a 5-year jail time. And as a result of this, Michael Cheika, for bringing him into the team, could potentially lose his job as the director of rugby. So this is quite like it's just really like stupid for me. Like, why didn't anybody tell these guys when you're traveling to countries, especially Asian countries, like maybe because I'm Asian, I know this sort of stuff. Like when you travel to countries like Japan, Singapore, China, a lot of these Asian countries have really, really, really strict laws, especially when it comes to like drugs. In Australia, I'm pretty sure it's not illegal to take drugs. It's illegal to like distribute drugs. So like you see people go to like new music festivals where they just get like high off whatever they can find, which is not illegal. But in countries like in the Asian countries, it's illegal to take drugs. So yeah, so Ferguson is not only fired from his club, he's facing 5-year jail time. The law in Japan is very, very strict on this sort of stuff. And there even has been previous incidences, like a Kiwi, Joe Everson, 23 days in prison for being high on cocaine. So like this stuff is pretty serious, and nobody seems to like told these players going into Japan about their laws. And sure enough, now not only that, he's gonna facing a potential long-term jail time. Cheika could potentially lose his job right away as a result of bringing this guy into Japan, because it's a very serious public image issue for the teams if they have this sort of connections in their team. So Cheika could be losing his job there as a result of this. Very, very different cultures there. So yeah, I'm very surprised that nobody told these people before they headed over that the laws are quite strict about this sort of stuff. And then we have another guy coaching overseas. So the Honorable Sir Oz Durant. Do you guys call it Sir in South Africa? I don't know. But the only other two-time World Cup winner, the big prop, he's going to coach Russia. So join the Russian coaching team. So I actually watched Russia play. I think it was Colombia in November. Russia has like very, very, like they were like dominating Colombia for most of the game. They eventually lost the game at the start, but they just keep trying to go for the set piece and the lineouts, and they were just failing to score the try. They had so many opportunities to kick 3 points, but they opted not to. So with someone like Oz Durant, we'll be able to help them out a lot with their scrummaging and their set pieces, and something that Russia seems to really want to do, want to get better at. This is definitely a big right direction going for Russia, having one of the best props in the world ever to coach you in your forwards, coaching your forwards. So they show strong desires to get better in their forwards by using their forwards, using their set pieces, and having this guy in the team is absolutely tremendous to building their team towards the next Rugby World Cup. And then there's some talks about de Allende's future moving from South Africa as well. He's currently a Munster, but his contract is set to expire in June. And Munster has just signed Malachi Fekitoa, the former All Black. So Munster having him in center, Damian de Allende with only a few months left in his contract, people are expecting him to go over to Japan, maybe another team. So he's definitely going to be leaving Munster by the looks of things for Damian de Allende. And then we have a bit more news for the South Africans overseas. So my favorite South African player, the superhuman Cheslin Kobe, he didn't even get a chance to play much of Rugby Championship due to the injury, and is finally set to return to play in the top 14 in France. And as a result of the Rona, one of his teammates has been hospitalized. The game has been cancelled. So yeah, he's not actually debuting yet. So pretty devastating news as well, that someone, you know, as a fit athlete could be in hospital from the Rona. That's pretty bad. So Japan also had a bit of delay with some of the games being scrapped with the launch of their new league. And yeah, so there has been a bit of delay there as well in Japan's top league. And then we have so as more issues with restrictions coming out for Wales. So Wales basically, let's go a bit further. So Wales government basically said this is going to be maximum public meeting outdoors of 50 people. So Wales is not going to just put 50 tickets at Millennium Stadium, right? So and the Welsh Rugby Union, Wales Rugby Union has come out and said 2 weeks ago, a couple weeks now in fact, that they're going to be losing a lot of money every game. Then that's going to be empty. They're looking like $100,000 a game or something that they're going to be losing if they don't have fans. Not 100, like 100 million. Sorry, it's like a lot of money, like a stupid amount of money, 10 million or something that they're going to lose every game if they don't play in front of fans, essentially. And then essentially, as a result of that, they are actually looking at potentially telling some of the bondholders to like donate their bonds back to the club, to the union, so they can recoup some of the money. And also the big issue is that they're currently looking at potentially moving some of their games to be played in England. So some of the games we play, obviously not going to be at Twickenham, probably at a different stadium, but they're going to be moving some of the games to England most likely, so that they can still have the crowds taking that risk, you know, to stay financially relevant, I guess, financially afloat in the current state of the thing. And as a result of that, There's some talks about people potentially wanting the Six Nations to be played in one country, kind of like the Rugby Championship where everything was played in Australia. But this will not work in Six Nations, in my opinion, because the home and away games have such a huge variance to the results. I mean, unless you're playing in Italy, I guess it wouldn't matter, but it's really going to give a team such a huge advantage. If like all the games are played in England, England's probably just going to straight up walk away with a Grand Slam. Like that's just the fact, right? If placing Ireland, Ireland's probably going to walk out with a Grand Slam. Placing in France, France probably going to walk out with a Grand Slam. There's such a huge swing of things. It's not like Australia where, you know, Australia's a tier 2 nation, so it doesn't really matter. But in those Six Nation games, teams are very close together. Playing one country, it's just going to lead to like a pretty one-sided win for that country, in my opinion. And so we're moving on to the next bit of news. So following the Rugby Football League, is that what's it called? Rugby Football League. So the Rugby League, basically the Rugby League body in, I think this is in England. I'm actually not 100% sure where they're from. Oh no, wait, is it Rugby League in Australia? Because that's NRL. Is that the NRL? Is that NRL Australia? But anyway, basically in Rugby League now, the mandatory concussion is set to 11 days, which is almost 11 days before they can play again, whilst the concussion protocols currently for rugby union is still set at 6 days, but it's not always done for 6 days. It's done, sometimes it takes longer. Some teams like Beauden Barrett was out for 2 weeks and he wasn't able to play after his concussion against Ireland to play France. So there's, you know, definitely teams have different degrees of how long they should rest, but the current requirement is only 6 days. So you can literally play the next weekend if you are cleared off from a head knock. You can, you know, play next Saturday as after you getting knocked out the previous week. So probably should be a bit longer than that, to be quite frank. Now, there's been some more discussions about whether or not the Springboks has done the right thing of being able to select players from overseas. This kind of like ties into how Australia is in at the moment. There's a lot of talks about Australia of getting allowing the international players to play for Australia so that to try to, you know, bolster the national team, something that the Springbok has done and literally immediately led to the Springboks winning the Rugby World Cup. So Jake White is starting to kind of like come out and, you know, against the current Springbok formula, which I thought is really good because there's a couple of advantages and disadvantages going into this thing. Obviously, the disadvantage is that your home league is lacking young talent, and basically the home television views, it's going to suffer a little bit. But your national team is going to do really well. You're going to do really well at the World Cup. You're going to do really well really well World Cup. So it's a really, and the players are going to get the money that they're worth, which is good for their family and themselves. So there's some talks about, you know, discussions about which way they should go going forward for South Africa. So just to present the advantages and disadvantages of this. So the advantage is obviously you can select your best players in the world, and the players make a lot of money overseas. And obviously the one of the things that one of the European clubs starting to realize as well, the Toulon president kind of came out and stated this about Ipan Isabeth, is that having these players overseas, they're paying a really high price for them to play in their clubs, but they're just basically, you know, paying the money for them to eventually play for South Africa, right? So that's kind of like an advantage. You know, you have your best players being taken care of essentially by another nation, and they're off your books, but they can still play for your country where you need them to do. So they also have this problem as well. So like Toulon, when the Springboks is playing, Itzebeth would not be playing for any of the club games, will be moving back to South Africa to play for South Africa. So Toulon is still paying for the salary, but South Africa is getting the benefit of using him for the national team. So that's definitely a huge advantage for the team as well. So, and also one of the argument was that, you know, if you only select, if you allow this sort of selection internationally, more players can go overseas. But the argument against that is obviously, if a player wants to go overseas, they can make a lot of money overseas, they will go anywhere. Having this sort of restriction will still, like the very best of the best will still go overseas regardless. A lot of people still go overseas regardless. So you can't really retain all of your talents anyway, but it just weakens a lot of your talents yeah, you end up with a weakened national team essentially, and you're not actually able to retain some of the very top talents as they, gonna be making so much more money overseas as well. So that's kind of the argument that's going for this sort of issue. I do think that for me, I think it's better it's really important for the players to make enough money to look after themselves for the remainders of their lives, especially if they're gonna have injuries for the rest of their lives that they're gonna have to deal with. They need to make enough money. You can't just cap their salaries, offer them a national jersey, and say thank you very much, mate, after 10 15 years when they're done. Thanks very much, mate. Hopefully you have something else, you have made enough money to live off your interest, and kick them out of the curb, right? So it's not really, I think it's better, the players need to look after themselves over any national interest. It's the nations needs to figure out how to make more money, how to attract new players, how to develop new players to build that fan base domestically with the players that they have. That's the thing. So even if you don't have the players, you don't have the talents anymore, you still, if you have the right franchise built up domestically, you have loyalty of the public towards the franchise themselves, you're still gonna have people coming up to watch because they're loyal to the franchise. And if you have new players coming up, and it's also gonna be good opportunities, good competition for the future of your national team as well. So I think the South Africa current situation is definitely the way to go for me. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments down below. Let me know if you agree with this. And also on the weekend, we saw the return of Israel Folau. He was, said some pretty, mean stuff towards the homosexual community, and he was kicked out of the Wallabies, got sacked, and then he got big payout out of that. But he's back to play rugby Japan. Looked pretty good, 2 tries. His defense still looked a bit shaky. He missed the tackle, led to a try from his opposition. They only barely won the game against the Toyota, I think, Kobe Steelers. They only barely won the game. Steelers had an opportunity to win the game in the last minute with a conversion, and they missed. They missed the conversion after a try in overtime, essentially. Really, really missed opportunity. And that was very lucky for Israel Folau to win that. But 2 tries, really looked good, really looked agile on the field. And this return basically means that Israel Folau could be available to play for Tonga in the Rugby World Cup 2023. So next year, Israel could potentially be playing for Tonga. So it will be very, very interesting to see someone that I'm interested to see how he will perform in international rugby again. To be quite frank, Charles Olivon his injury has been updated. He had a knee injury last year. He's been out since July last year, probably even earlier than that. So he's been out for well over 6 months at this point, and he's set to miss 6 Nations according to his coach Fabien Gaultier. And so he's the captain, one of the best players in the French team. Hopefully, hopefully he gets better soon. I mean, this sort of knee injuries, I think, didn't Gareth Anscombe had a knee injury and he was out for 2 years or something as a result of it. So hopefully he's not going to be out for 2 years, and I hope he gets recovered soon. And then we have D-Mac also played for the Sungoliath on the weekend, and there had been a lot of talk about D-Mac potentially wanting to play 10. He talked about how he loves to play 10. He played 10 when he was in high school, and he got put in 15 again. And but he had a really good performance on the weekend. Did he win what happened? I can't remember the result. But anyway, so he did play 15 again. I was pretty surprised. He did take the kicking duty as well. Very surprised to see D-Mac at 15 and not at 10, because D-Mac is one of the best players in the world. Anyway. And finally, we have Moana Pacifica adding 2 coaches into their Super Rugby side. The Southland coach, Dale McLeod, and the former Blues and Chiefs Sunwolves prop, Polisasi Manu, will join the Moana Pacifica squad for the Super 12. That's starting in, I think, just a bit over a month. I think maybe just a month away, I think. Anyway, guys, thank you for watching the news this week. Let me know your thoughts on all the articles this week. Like, comment, and subscribe. Stay safe, stay healthy. All of my friends have got the Rona, so please stay safe. And a lot of them have, has been in bed aching. Yeah, he's been in bed for a couple of days now. So not a good experience. Please stay safe. Please try to avoid getting the Rona. Thanks for watching, guys. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see you guys later this week. Cheers.